there. This Earth Day I thought I would talk to the AAC community about ecobricks. Ecobricks are plastic bottles, single-use plastic bottles, which have been stuffed with other single-use plastic. Personally, on my journey to creating zero waste within my personal life, I try to avoid single-use plastic as much as possible. But within my professional life, I know that there is some plastic that I cannot help but create in school. So I try to take personal responsibility and be accountable for as much of that as possible. And by doing so, I know that that isn't entering our biosphere. And I know that all of the plastics that I am either buying or making or creating, I know where they're ending up, and they're not ending up inside the stomach of a dead whale, which makes me be able to sleep better, a little bit better at night. So I thought I'd show you the process, and I'd show you how you can do it when you are creating communication resources for the young people that you serve. So wherever possible, being able to repurpose items and being able to reuse them before wanting to get rid of them and recycle them. Obviously, we're talking about plastic, so one of the R's is rot, so that's not really appropriate or applicable here. So some things that look like plastic may be made of cornstarch or potato starch, and they are fully compostable because they are 100% plant-based and will go back to nature, whereas other plastics might say biodegradable, and what they actually mean is they're going to go into millions of small pieces into microplastics and certainly in the soil or enter the water courses. So wherever possible, I am making a personal pledge to try and stop using plastic. Things like laminating unnecessary resources. I'm being really conscious and making an effort to look at the resources I'm creating, and if they need printing out, if I can't use them electronically, really looking at very carefully, if I laminate this, am I going to be able to use it again? And if I am going to laminate it, I need to make sure that it's kept well organised, somewhere that I can find it again, put my hands on it and reuse it over and over again. However, recently I have been creating quite a few PODD books, and with the plastic waterproof paper, which is an absolute godsend and I'm absolutely not against in any way, shape or form. By the very bare minimum, I am creating all of the bottom of the tabs from the PODD books. So these are 100% plastic. They can't be recycled by any curbside recycling in the UK. I am based in the UK. So there is, out of the 52 counties in the UK, none of them will take this type of plastic. This isn't anything that they can recycle or repurpose it into. So this needs to go into the household waste, usually. Whereas I have been making ecobricks for a while. There's a turn the page, a corner of turn the page there. What else can I see? There's the back page of an instructions, and there's some other bits of PODD books in there. There's a bit of a corner of one. I am not somebody who will replace things lightly or easily. However, I do also appreciate that there is a certain point where you do have to replace things, and when a PODD page looks like this, I am willing to reprint it and make it easier for the communication partners and the children to use. This has been sellotaped twice, as you can see, which when it was sellotaped back together, I obviously thought it was still fit for purpose. The corners weren't bent and the tab wasn't ripped off. So wherever possible, we do try and give them a little bit of TLC. We've got a little PODD page surgery in the AAC room, where when the PODD pages become damaged, we try and fix them as best we can. However, I'm not a magician, and there are limits to my capacity to being able to not produce plastic waste. So when the pages get like this, I do take them out, I do reprint them. I know that they say that they're tear proof, but occasionally we do get some tears. So there's just some examples of the fact that I'm not perfect, and we do create waste and we do create plastic. But for me personally, making sure that that doesn't enter a waste stream that I don't know where it's going to end up is important to me. So I bring these things home and sit in front of the television, cut them up into small pieces, and I'm going to give you a taster of the ecobrick process now. I would add a word of caution to say that you can't just use the waterproof, tearproof paper in the ecobricks. It has to be flexible plastic, so things like plastic bags, things like We've got some of that tape stuff that goes around parcels, sweet wrappers, little bit of the netting that goes around garlic or onions. This is from a very, very long time ago. We don't create most of this waste now, as I buy all of my fruit and veg and salad plastic free and grow a lot on my allotment as well. So it has to be a good mix of different plastics. It has to be stuffed really, really hard, and it needs to be as solid as a brick for the purposes if you want to do something with it. So for example, people have built benches, people have built planters, and so it needs to be really rock solid, as in you can't squeeze it. So this is an eco brick that I've been working on. This is one of two that I've created in 2021. We unfortunately got quite a lot of plastic in January because my nana died, so we got lots of flowers given to us, which was very kind, but they all came in plastic, which was a shame. So there's quite a lot of lovely bright colourful plastic in here. But just an example of a bad eco brick, I can squeeze this. So that wouldn't be structurally sound for anything. So this is the eco brick that I'm gonna add things into. So the first thing you need to do is acquire all your plastic, have it in one place, really sharp pair of scissors, probably a glass of wine, maybe a box of chocolates and a good film. When you're chopping up and preparing your plastic, the long thin strips from the tabs are really great because you can just chop them across, make them into about stamp size pieces, and don't forget to go into the hole punch and get all of the hole punched bits because they can't go in the recycling either, so you can pop them in the eco brick. It's really, really important that the plastic bottle that you're using is clear, so that it can be validated by the ecobrick community. And I input the data for the ecobricks that I make into there so that they have kilograms worth of the amount of plastic that the world is creating. Ecobricking is done all over the world. Many different communities. Some places do it together, some people do it in their own homes individually and contribute to larger schemes where people build community benches or buildings. So there's some latrines in developing countries that have been made from eco bricks. So it's really, really important that the plastic is flexible in that you can crunch it. It has to be clean and it has to be dry. So if you're using something like the wrapping of a pork pie, you must clean it out before you do it, which is just another stage in taking personal responsibility for the waste that you're creating and making sure that you know where your plastic ends up. It must be clean and it must be 100% dry, because otherwise it will damage the integrity of the inside of the bottle and make it not structurally sound. It has to be packed tight and it has to be packed tighter, and then it has to be packed a little bit tighter. And then once you think that you're at the capacity, then you can put the lid on, put it on the floor and run your feet over the top of it all the way along, and then you'll find some more space. And if it's the winter, you can put it on a radiator for half an hour when the radiators are on, and all of the plastic inside will become a little bit more malleable, and then you can push more in. If it's the summer, pop it outside in the middle of the day for half an hour and it will become even, you'll be able to get even more in it. So the most important thing that you need is a wooden spoon. And now that you've prepared all of your plastic into stamp size pieces, really quite small, you can pop them in the top of the bottle and then keep pushing it down. The most important thing with bottles that have got bumps on the bottom is that you really push down into them to begin with, because once you get past here, it's very hard to give it a lot of force. Remember the hole punches from inside your hole punch, because they can't be recycled. Small pieces of paper do not go through our recycling system well. They say that the smallest amount of paper that the UK's recycling plants can handle is A6 size, which is why you can't put shredded paper or anything like that into it, because it jams up the machinery inside the recycling plant. So that's how I make eco bricks. I've shown you what I make them from pod pages, from when they either get not fit for purpose anymore and reach the end of their usable life, or the bottom of the tabs whilst I'm cutting them. I really hope this has been useful. I hope that you've enjoyed watching the journey and that you can see how easy it is to make eco bricks and how easy it is to be personally responsible for the plastic that you create. It does take time, it takes thought, it takes consideration, and it is an extra job to do, and I appreciate that not everybody has the time or the energy to put into this, and that it's an extra responsibility. But I hope that you think that it's worth doing. I certainly think it's worth doing, so that I know that I'm accountable for the waste that I create, and I hope that you think that it's something that you might consider doing. It's also something that's really good to do with children. We've got some children working on their dexterity skills and their cutting skills. If you've got anybody who needs to do anything with their hands, fine motor skills, for physiotherapy or occupational therapy, or needs to be using a less dominant hand for something, this is cutting skills that it doesn't matter whether it goes wrong. It doesn't matter what kind of shape you create, as long as it gets smaller, and sometimes the smaller the better. So sometimes if you've got, I've got a couple of children who will just shred entire pieces of paper if your back's turned. This is the type of thing that they can shred with immunity. So it's something that you could do in school, and whilst you're doing it, you can have a dialogue about plastic waste, it ending up in the sea, and Earth Day. So I hope that this has been useful, and happy Earth Day.